I'm having a bit of an internal struggle right now because I have done Hung Gar Kung Fu for a long time. And I have convinced myself for a long time that when I fight, I should really try to do Kung Fu, not just kickbox, because it would confuse me as a kid or a teenager going to all these martial arts tournaments and seeing somebody do Eagle Claw style and Praying Mantis style and Tai Chi and Bagua and Hung Gar. And then when they'd fight, they would kickbox. Basically just jabs and roundhouse kick after roundhouse kick, endless roundhouse kicks. And I never liked that. Like, I wanted to see their style in action. I wanted to show people my style in action. I didn't want to go out there and pretend that I don't know quite how to say it. Like, do a bunch of kung fu moves in a form and say, like, I'm a kung fu fighter, and then I go fight and I'm kickboxing. So even as recently as like earlier this year and last year, when I met another school, I really wanted to spar with them and make a point to do Hung Gar. And then I recently made a video called Hung Gar versus Everyone, where I fight different styles. I fight some American boxers, a taekwondo guy is in there, karate, Muay Thai, just people of different styles. And then I edited the videos so that I would do a kung fu technique. I would say which Hung Gar form this kung fu technique came from. I would show it, and then I would show me using it in several of these fights to make a point that you really can use kung fu techniques in a fight. You don't just have to kickbox. You can practice what you preach. And that video was actually fairly popular, so go check it out. But now I'm seeing, and I think I have been seeing this for a while, that fighting is fighting. And to restrain yourself to a certain set of moves may not be wise. In fact, it isn't wise. But that was pivotal in me learning to fight. In Hung Gar, we have a 5 animal system, meaning that we have a dragon style, tiger style, crane, snake, and leopard. And as a young kung fu student, I thought tiger style means that you're using the tiger claw. Crane style means that you're using the crane fist. Leopard style means that you're using the leopard fist. And that was how you identified what was what. Then I learned it's not really about the fist, it's about the mindset behind it. If you're fighting like a tiger, you're the biggest, strongest animal in the jungle. You don't care who you're fighting because you're going to rip them up. And you don't even care necessarily about being hit because you're stronger. But a crane is not the biggest, strongest animal. It has to evade and use angles and use its long neck and its long beak and its long legs to attack sensitive spots from a distance and quickly. Same with snake and leopard and dragon. They all have their mindset. So I'm a categorical learner in that I categorize things. So I would start trying to really understand these 5 mindsets. I would only fight using the tiger mindset. And then in like round 2, I would only fight using the crane mindset. And then round 3, I'd use the dragon mindset. And I thought, this is cool because if my opponent thinks they know what my strategy is in round 1, I'll come out in round 2 and I'm a totally different fighter. But then I learned, I evolved over time, and I thought maybe that's not the best way. Maybe I should just Sure, learn the animal styles, but just fight. You use a dragon mindset and then change to tiger, then a crane, then snake, and just bounce all over the place, and then just let it become me. And then that's what happened. I now don't say I'm going to fight just crane, and I think it's a little silly that I once did that, yet it was a building block and a stepping stone to where I eventually got. And then I started feeling pretty confident in my abilities, and I would go to other schools, such as Muay Thai schools and MMA schools and other Kung Fu schools, and I would just ask to work out with them. And I would essentially empty my cup. I never walked in there with my uniform on and my sash on and introduced myself as a Kung Fu man, and then I'm a fighter trying to prove. No, I just said, hey, I think I can learn a lot from you guys. Let's work out. And so we did. I would hit pads. I would wear the boxing gloves when we did that, which in Kung Fu, we don't use boxing gloves because you can't do all the different hands systems. You can't grab, you can't, grapple and stuff. But I wasn't there to do Kung Fu. I was there to learn from them. So I always did things their way. And in that, I learned a lot. Like, the Muay Thai leg kick is very freaking effective. And that's not in any of the hand forms of Hung Gar. But yet, I find myself still doing it because it's effective. And I've always been under the impression that like a spinning side kick or a spinning anything kick sucks. It's not going to work. It won't be good. But then I met some fighters who were good with spinning kicks and they landed them. And I thought, maybe I was wrong. And so I started opening my mind, and still, Hung Gar is always my base martial art, but I added things in from other styles. And originally, Hung Gar was a mixed martial art. Hung Gar was a group of martial artists that got together and exchanged skills and exchanged forms and exchanged ideas. And then Hung Gar was born from several different martial arts. Nowadays, people like to categorize Hung Gar as it's a system with low stances, low kicks, no spinning techniques really. Definitely no jumping kicks. We're not acrobatic. We don't roll. We don't do the wushu jump kicks. Like, if someone's doing Hung Gar and you're well versed in Kung Fu, you can typically tell, like, that's at least a Southern style, or that's Hung Gar. Whereas, like, you could look at a Tai Chi person and say that's a Tai Chi form. You could look at a Bagua person and say that's a Bagua form. But Hung Gar is a mixed martial art. It comes from different styles of martial arts of Kung Fu. So, what really is Hung Gar and what really isn't? We know the characteristics, but what does that mean? In no Hung Gar hand form is there a roundhouse kick. And in no Hung Gar form is there a spinning heel kick, which in Hung Gar we call a dragon tail. But in the kicking drills that my teacher's teacher made, we do have roundhouse kicks. We do have spinning heel kicks or dragon tails. But that's not in the hand forms. But is it still Hung Gar? Yes, it is, because it's in our Hung Gar system. And it's not like dragon style, tiger, leopard, crane, and snake were all made in the same day, in the same instant. I believe that the founder of Hung Gar was a tiger style practitioner, and then his wife did the crane style. And so now they developed martial art with tiger and crane. And then later on, leopard style was introduced, and then later dragon, and then later snake. Some Hung Gar systems even practice forms from the praying mantis system. My Hung Gar system doesn't do that. But if a Hung Gar system from a fighter from one of these other branches were to use a praying mantis technique, would it be correct in saying that's not Hung Gar? But they learned it in their Hung Gar school. It's a part of their curriculum. So what is and what is not Hung Gar? That's a question that I've been grappling with for a while. And let's say that I have learned that the Muay Thai leg kick is super effective, and I think, why is this not in the system? So I make a hand form, and now that low leg Muay Thai kick is now Hung Gar. Actually, there's a great example of this. Holap Tin, which is my teacher's teacher's teacher, made a form called the shooting star form. And Holap Tin had practiced a northern style of Kung Fu before he got into Hung Gar, which had a lot of jump kicks and a lot of spinning, long arm techniques. Not necessarily spinning, but a lot of long arm techniques. And he made the shooting star form, which is the last form that we learned in our Hung Gar branch, and it looks almost nothing like our other Hung Gar forms. It's totally different. Holap Tin took his northern techniques and integrated them into Hung Gar. So if I study Muay Thai and I put Muay Thai moves in a Hung Gar form, that's now Hung Gar. So I no longer feel pressured, I guess, to specifically showcase Hung Gar techniques or animal techniques in my fights. I still do them because I still think that they are effective, but the pressure to do them is off. Because fighting is fighting. At the end of the day, a punch is a punch, a jab is a jab, a spinning heel kick is a dragon tail, you know? So the pressure is off. All MMA came from traditional martial arts. And traditional martial arts came from people who knew nothing at one point. And they figured out, hey, if I hit you with my fist better than you can hit me with yours, I can eat your food. You know, I can do what I want around you. And then now we've got systems, and now people feel locked in. But fighting is fighting, and everything is pretty much a mixed martial art, with exceptions. Like, this video is long enough, so I won't really go into all the exceptions, but one example would be Taekwondo, not really a mixed martial art. It could be considered a mixed martial art if you're like, this kick came from a karate practitioner, and this kick came from some guy in the woods, you know, and now we've got Taekwondo. But anyway, yeah, so I think I'll end it here.